Hello, it's Oliver here from the Earful Tower. This week, you're going to hear me and my chief tour guide, Charlotte Pleasance, talking about the 10 things we think you should do on your third trip to Paris. If this is the first time you're listening to this Earful Tower podcast, you might be a bit confused. Let me explain. 2 weeks ago, I did a checklist for the first trip to Paris, really obvious things, Eiffel Tower, Champs-Élysées. The week after that, somewhat surprised by the popularity of the previous episode, I decided to do the second trip to Paris, which as far as I'm concerned is where it gets very interesting. But then I thought, should I do the third? Should I do a podcast episode about the third visit? And I put it to the Patreon supporters. This is how I phrased it. I said, you decide, should I ditch this idea? I said, I realize that these episodes maybe aren't fun if you're looking for a really deep dive into Paris. So you can make the call. Should next week's podcast episode be about the third trip to Paris? And 87% said do the third episode out of 250 votes. 13% said don't do this episode. So to those people, I apologize. To the rest of you, what you're in for now is me and Charlotte discussing. I think, to be honest, I think this is where it gets pretty fun. We go a little bit sort of off the beaten path here. If you've not really got a strong knowledge of Paris, there'll be new things for you here. And if you are an expert, this would be a good list to share with some friends. But before we begin, I got an email from Press Maxon, our in-house musician, and he said, when you said that you'd continue the pattern from things to do on the first and second visits, I knew we should make a little custom music. And presumably, if it's someone's third visit to Paris, they're doing things you've never done before. Well, so am I with this tune. The song I remade for this episode is not a song in French or by a French artist. That's a first for me on this show. But the sentiment is there. The album is called Feels Like the Third Time, and the song is You've Never Been This Far Before. If that doesn't fit the spirit of a third visit to our favorite city in the world, I don't know what does. Press, you hit the nail on the head. We're about to hear his music. Then you're about to hear from Charlotte Pleasance. At the end of the episode, I'll be back to talk about how you can find more from all these people and this list. Take it away, Press. Charlotte Pleasance, how you doing?
Oliver G, very well.
Very, very formal we both are with each other. Firstly, the music by Press Maxon hit the spot.
Incredible.
And you've met him.
I have.
The man, the myth, the legend.
In the flesh.
Now, did you chat to him? We're talking about that Christmas party a few months ago.
Yeah, at the Christmas party, after a bit of mix and mingling, he came up to me, we were chatting. He said, "You're Charlotte." I said, "You're Press." And we hit it off.
Was this before he played the music?
This was after. Oh. After the beautiful music number.
It was pretty good. The Edith Piaf. Mm-hmm. That was a real...
It's exceptional.
Those
Sing along.
Showstoppers. Speaking of showstoppers, let's talk about Paris. Let's talk about you first. Charlotte Pleasance. Mm-hmm. You're in theatre. You're in Paris. You've been here about as long as I have, I think. Yeah. About the same.
Yep.
You sort of stayed around the Marais in your time in Paris, is that right? Are you still there now?
Just beyond the Marais and the 11th now. Okay. So just beyond the boulevard. Okay. But yeah, lived in the Marais for 4 years. And
you've been involved in the Earful Tower. You were a guest, by the way. Did we talk about this again on the show? You were a guest way back on the first season with Timothy Chalamet's
sister.
Have we talked about that properly?
I don't think so.
What was all that about? That was a surprise.
I know. Now she's kind of big.
Yeah, is she big as well?
Yeah, she's in like an HBO show and stuff.
Did she? So she got her start on the Eiffel Tower.
She absolutely did. Yeah.
I remember what we talked about. You and I when we were on the boat ride in the with that Patreon video on the Canal de l'Orque. That's where we talked about. So we haven't talked about it on the show before. No. But we were talking about theatre and stuff like that.
Yeah, we were putting together an international theatre festival, and so we came on and talked to you about arts in Paris, but also, shared a bit about the festival as well.
Mm-hmm. And since then, you've been involved behind the scenes, not just the big countdown season, head researcher telling us where to go, finding all the good stuff.
Yep.
More recently, tour guiding around Paris, chief tour guide, some say.
Oh.
I say. So I think it would be cool to that we go through this list together as two seasoned Paris veterans. And I saved you up for the third one because this is serious. As far as I'm concerned, this is where playtime is over.
Yeah.
Eiffel Tower's done. We're doing some exciting stuff here.
Yeah. Bring the serious guide in.
Yes. So do you want to get through this list and we'll sort of share our thoughts? I'm interested in your thoughts. Before anything, though, have you seen Emily in Paris?
Yep.
That was hesitant.
I think I watched the first... Is it season 3 now? I watched the first 2 seasons and I was kind of like, oh, this is, in a kind of hate watch way. But like what I do like about it is how beautiful it makes Paris seem. But I'm like, it never is like that. And then I started watching season 3 and I was like, I just can't deal with this anymore.
I think I'm beginning to wonder about it because I watched the 3rd season. I hadn't watched any of it until now. And they kind of whitewash all of Paris to make it look really beautiful. And I was talking to a taxi driver this morning about it because we went past the Assemblée Nationale across from the Concorde, and they've just power hosed it, and it looks beautiful. And I said that to the taxi driver. I was like, hey, look at that building. Imagine if the whole city was like that. And he's like, no, the whole city is so ugly. It needs a big cleaning. And I was like, yeah, just like in Emily in Paris. He didn't know what I was talking about. But it's interesting. Like, I think a lot of the people who watch it, if you are a Paris resident, like you are, it doesn't really speak any truths.
No. Sometimes I like to look in the background and like try and really figure out where they are, actually. Like sometimes like, we're in the Marais. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're in the 5th arrondissement. I know exactly where you are.
There was a bit in the new season, no spoiler alerts, where they were at the Parc de Villette at the outdoor cinema.
Yeah.
And then you see them watching the screen, they're clearly there, like no doubt. Then in the background, like behind them is the Eiffel Tower.
What?
That was naughty. The reason I brought it up, though, isn't to talk about that, but Palais Royal is the first on this list. And that features kind of heavily in the show, true. I believe. But now that we're on the 3rd trip to Paris, you've done all the main stuff. Now it's time to start seeing some things that aren't... We're not in the top 10 list anymore. They're not going to be tourists everywhere, and the Palais Royal is a really good place to start. Do you like it there?
Yeah, it's not on my like regular kind of walk around Paris, but whenever I go, it always feels like a bit of a special treat. Like it's very beautiful and manicured and lovely place to get photos, take photos and get your photo taken. Really beautiful.
Do you ever treat it like a destination? Are you ever like, hey, let's go down to the Palais Royal and chill out? Or is it more like a passing through?
I think it's a passing through for me. I'd probably, if I go, actually last year I think I went to actually see the magnolia trees. I did a special trip to actually go and see those because there's tons there.
For those of us who don't know what a magnolia tree, is that the one that blossoms nicely?
Yeah, like before the cherry blossoms. It's like March. And that I feel like the last time I went and specifically went was to actually go and see that.
Okay, that's something to look out for. I just remembered I have a story from there. For those of you guys at home who don't know what we're talking about, this is the beautiful ancient square, like Charlotte said, really manicured, but also it's got those columns, black and white columns of different heights that are an Instagrammer's best friend, I think. Yeah. I was there once and there were a lot of security and cameras. And I was like, oh, something big is being filmed here. And I'm attracted to that. And I go up to the dude there and I'm like, this is a couple years ago. And I was like, what are you guys filming? And he goes, I can't tell you. And I said, what is it, like Mission Impossible 15 as a joke? And he goes, ha, no. Guess what?
What?
In the latest Mission Impossible scenes, he's in the Palais Royal.
Oh my goodness.
I was...
Called it.
I was 5 meters away from Tom Cruise. I didn't see him. Okay, anyway, so that's worth a look. And if you're into things like treasure hunts, those Arago markers, you know about these Arago markers?
Yeah.
They go right through it. You can find a good concentration of them. More on that soon in another episode. Number 2, we've got the Rodin Museum. I think that's perfect for a third-time visit because I think if you're on your first visit, you might you'll see the Eiffel Tower in the background out of the garden. You'll be like, I should be there. You'll be distracted.
Yeah.
But the Rodin is really one of those museums that is like a take your breath away.
Totally.
I didn't even know this place existed kind of thing.
And it's like bite-sized. It's like there's not too much.
Yeah.
I was one of the museums that I went to in 2020. I went on a bit of a 2020.
What, did you like jump over the fence when it was closed or something?
No, like post-lockdown,
it's
like,
okay.
you know, there weren't tourists around. I had a friend and we were like, let's try and get to a lot of museums while the tourists aren't here. And that was one we went to.
That must have been really special when it was...
It was really nice. There
Yeah.
weren't too many people. There weren't really any people in the gardens. And then we kind of had the little house with all the different sculptures inside it to ourselves. It's
I
pretty
think
cool.
there's cool... I don't even think you need to be a fan of Monsieur Rodin at all. You don't even need to... You can go there and not even care for his sculptures. I mean, I think you should have a look. But my point is the building itself, which used to be his old atelier, maybe his house, I think, and the garden are so stunning. It's one of those museums that you can go to just for the outline of it. You know what I mean? Like you
the
don't...
experience.
Yeah. Obviously the museum, and the museum's great, and they do a lot of, they had like a crossover with Picasso a little while back where you could see how they inspired each other or whatever. But also, as Charlotte said, the garden is brilliant, and I know some tourists go there and don't pop out into the garden. Do it. Do it. It's bigger than you think too.
Probably the best, I would say the best part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're famously not a Rodin fan. Everybody...
Yes.
Also, if you guys don't know what we're talking about, the Thinker, the big famous statue of the Thinker, you can see that if you peep through the hedges from outside.
Oh, yeah, it's
if
true.
you want to save 12 euros or something. But get in there, guys. It's worth it. The next one, this is, I don't know. Do you think this is a third visit, the Musée Carnavalet?
Yeah, because it's the history of Paris. And the first couple trips, you're just kind of getting the feel for
true.
Paris.
That's true. You shouldn't be interested in the history of Paris
Well,
on your
yes,
first
you-
visit.
well-
No, I mean it. I mean, on the first one, I think the first trip, I'm always like, I got some negative comments about these lists. On the first trip, people were like, you're kind of talking about it like you got to get it out of the way. And I responded like,
I think you do.
I think so too. And I responded like, if I was getting all excited about going up the Eiffel Tower, that's a bit disingenuous too. I think you should just go and do it.
Yeah.
Go home, let it process, then come
Yeah.
back for that magical second, and then the magical third trip.
Yeah.
At which point you're sort of like, you're like, history of Paris. Yeah, let's dig a little deeper. And this museum is fantastic for it. Gives you this way, like, not just hundreds, thousands of years back.
It's astounding.
Have you been down to the bottom where they got like remnants of
The boat.
like a canoe from, I don't know, 2,000 plus, 3,000 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot to see. I've been 3 times now. The first visit, I kind of did it all. But it's free, so you can,
Yeah, you go in
back.
for 5 seconds, and then that's just to go in for that entry with all the old signs, the most magnificent. Oh, besides the Louvre, which probably has the best entrance going down that. Yeah, the Louvre. But the Musée Carnavalet. If you're in Paris and you're walking past, just look in the lobby.
Yeah.
Where they've got the old signs that they took from like the butchers 200 years ago that got saved, and the whole room is full of them. It's amazing. But it was very hard to visit. You used to live right around there, eh?
Yeah, I lived down the end of the street that it's on for 4 years, and it was closed the whole time.
The biggest renovation known to man. I think.
Yeah, for like 5 years, I think.
So frustrating, because had you been there before?
No, I only went whenever it opened.
Yeah, me too.
2021?
Yeah. And people always used to say on this podcast, when I ask them their favorite thing to do in Paris, like these seasoned Parisians would be like, the Carnival is the best thing that there is. And I was like, it's been under renovation for... It's like the Notre Dame now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Speaking of the Carnival, it's in the Marais. Let's have a little pause for a second
Okay.
to talk about the tours.
Great.
You've met a lot of the listeners.
I have.
Yeah. Are they nice?
They're great. They're always great.
Have you done more Marais or Montmartre tours?
I don't know. Maybe more Marais.
Okay, perfect. So I think what we should do is talk just for a second about, because we were sort of brainstorming and chatting a little bit before about these tours. And we agree that one of the things that's the most fun is when I was going to say goes off the rails, but I meant to say goes off the script.
Yeah.
And you have people that sort of dare to follow into a courtyard or something like that.
Yeah.
And we were on one together in the Place de Vosges where... I'm going to say how I remember it because we were both doing it at the time. And as I remember it, I said to the people we were with who were, I think, American, I said, this is the Place de Vosges, and I'm famously not great with the history and the numbers and stuff like that, but I love a good story and finding all the good bits. And I say, it's a couple hundred years old, maybe 200 or 300 or 500 or something. And someone walked past, and they go, it's 400 years old. Is this so far?
Yeah. That was the entry to our conversation.
And I was like, oh, you know the number, great. And then she says, well, I should know, I live here. And she opened the door right by us in the Place de Vosges. And I said, can we come in as well and look at inside this courtyard? And she goes, yeah, but usually you get yelled at by the gardien or the concierge or whatever if you're not with a resident. And but I'll make an exception. Is that what? I don't know, something like that. And she took us in and opened into this Narnia-like magical...
gorgeous.
And it made me wonder just how many of those, like what it looks like in all those courtyards of Place de Vosges.
Or the courtyards of Paris. There's so many things tucked away.
So when you're on tours, are you busting off script, finding things like this?
Yeah, I was actually just remembered a tour that I did earlier on last year with a couple who were super curious about all things Paris and so excited. And so I was like, I remember thinking, okay, this is where I can really kind of get a little funky. And so I proposed to them that we go, instead of, the regular route, go from Place de Vosges to this little rose garden just a bit out of the way. And they were like, yeah, let's do it. And so we went and found this cute little rose garden.
So instead of going from Place de Vosges towards the Musée Carnavalet, you were like, let's go.
We eventually looped back to the Carnavalet, but we kind of did a little extra kind of tour to this rose garden. And then we were, walking our way to the Carnavalet, and there was this beautiful courtyard, and I was like, oh, should we try and get in here? And they were like, oh yeah. And I was like, you know what? The hack that I found with like getting into buildings, it's a little bit, I mean, this is very Oliver G, frankly.
Good, that's what I like to
But sometimes at the building, on the like entryway, if it's like a doctor's office or it's like some sort of, you could go in and have some sort of appointment. Sometimes there's like a little button that you can just press and it means the door opens. So I was like, maybe we can try that. And I pressed it and it opened.
What, you guys were in the doctor's surgery for 45 minutes waiting for an appointment?
No, it was like a really beautiful courtyard that we went in and had a closer look. But then I tried it again in the future and it didn't work. And so it was magic one time.
Or maybe that whole thing never happened. It was a dream. Maybe you were never doing a tour of the Marriott at all. Maybe we're not sitting here recording a podcast right now. That's funny, though. I often, I don't do tours much anymore, but I used to say at the beginning, if you dare, I like you said, I like popping into courtyards.
Yeah.
We might all get arrested, but if you're up for it, I don't think you really do get arrested. No. But for anyone that does the tours, I highly encourage people, say to Charlotte that you're game.
Yeah.
Say you're game for it because, didn't you go up to the, it was you that discovered you get up behind the red windmill at the Moulin Rouge.
Yeah, I think I was just walking past it one day and I saw a little arrow and I realized, oh yeah, there's like this cocktail. No, I think we talked about the fact that there's a cocktail bar up there. And I was like, oh, I should go and check it out. And then I realized you could literally go all the way up and just onto the roof. And so on the Montmartre tours, if I think the people are, interested in it, we just boldly walk in and just walk all the way up.
It's all about the boldness, isn't it? Did you see that with the Moulin Rouge dancers sunbathing up there by the... Is that what
Not yet.
Not yet. Let's get on with the list. We've still got a bunch to get through, so we might do some quick fire ones. This one is one that I think will speak to us both. The Canal Saint-Martin.
Yeah.
You've been to Paris a couple of times. You've done the basic stuff. Now it's time to see what the fuss is about. Especially if you're a little bit older, I wouldn't recommend this on your first trip at all.
No.
Like, save it. But when you're, if you're listening and you're under 30, yeah, sure, go there straight away. That's going to be your kind of Brooklyn vibe or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you're a bit older, go and do the things that you want to see ticket off, but then go here to sort of catch the vibe and check it out and see what everyone's talking about. All these articles and, everyone's been talking about this for years. It's the kind of the cool hip place of Paris. You got to see it, and there's all these new restaurants opening up. There'll be something that'll... Yeah. It's not just sitting on the stone drinking beer from the supermarket anymore. It's really got a character. People like you or me spend a lot of time by the canal. Do you still go there?
Yeah, I ran along it the other day.
Running.
Ran all the way up to La Villette, actually.
From where?
From République.
That's a good run.
And then I went down to the Seine.
Are you training for the marathon?
Half marathon.
When is the half marathon?
6th of March.
Because I'm technically training for the marathon.
Yeah.
But,
Have you run up to La Villette?
now I know that there's a half marathon.
Yeah, maybe
now that's
do that
very
one.
enticing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
The Canal Saint-Martin, just go there, go there in the middle of a beautiful day, walk along it, and just keep going. And when it starts getting boring, if you're heading north, like the Villette and where you ran to is really cool, but if you want that vibe, you want to be not far from République, check out around there. Or go all in, bring a picnic blanket, beers, do as the youngsters do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any cool places around there? Hot new places?
Gros Bao. That's the coolest place I think I can think of.
Is that on the side? Is that near that Cork and Cavern Bar? That Irish bar?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
It's like
Gros Bao.
Yeah.
We'll put that in the show notes.
Nice.
Okay. Next on the list is the Pantheon. Pantheon. I've talked about this on the show recently, so I won't go too deep. But it's where the famous faces, the historical names of Paris are buried. So if you want to go downstairs, you can see you see the tombs. So it's not that cool, but you see the tombs of Josephine Baker and like Louis Braille and Victor Hugo. These kind of like wildly famous people. Yeah. You see their name on a tomb. But what's really, really breathtaking is the building itself.
Yeah.
I've said it before on the show, so I'll be real brief. Buy the skip the line ticket. You can do it on your phone as you're going in. Just walk past everyone that's lining there who hasn't figured out that you can do it. I can't believe that. It's I can't believe it. And then walk in and I would recommend to people to hold under your chin because it's jaw dropping. No, but it is. It really is. And there's,
I love that you just put the mic to my face to get some sort of reaction.
I felt
there.
it deserved a laugh.
Yeah.
But there's a big pendulum as well that a lot of people are fascinated by, and understandably so. Next on the list, 9th arrondissement, Opéra Garnier. Have you ever seen a show there?
I have.
What did you think? You were excited.
It was cool. And I actually think I need to go back. Yeah, I think I went for a visit once, and then I went to see a show once. This was probably my first or second year in Paris, so like 5 years ago now. But you can do this sort of thing where you go the day of and get like a €20 ticket. I mean, you could 5 years ago.
Oh, so you just rock up and say, are there any tickets for tonight?
Yeah, and it wasn't like the best seat, but I saw, and I didn't even know, but it was a ballet, and the music was by James Blake, which is a very cool, hip, kind of techno modern musician.
Wow.
With these classical ballerinas dancing in this beautifully historic building with the beautiful, Chagall on the roof.
Yes. And if you're on a short trip and you can't time it or you can't get tickets, just doing that €11 tour is really brilliant. It's one of the best sort of hours you could spend in the city, I think, if you're into that kind of architecture. Did you dress up for the show? To what degree?
To the degree I could afford to, I think, at the time. I thought I was quite dressed up, but now thinking back, oh no, I did actually, because at the time I lived in the 16th, I was living with family friends, and I thrifted like a Balmain jacket.
Nice.
And so I wore that.
In the 16th, you can find them just laying on the side of the road.
Just on the corner.
Council to pick up.
Yeah.
That's cool that you went to a show. I've heard when I did the first bucket list ever on this show with a bunch of friends, someone had put that they wanted to see an opera, and it was right at the end, and about 8 of them went together, and they got decent seats, and it was a German opera, and they hated it.
Oh, yeah.
They hated it.
I don't know if I think I saw an opera when I was like 8 with my grandparents, and I was like, whoa. Yeah. So maybe now many decades later, I'd be more into it. But I think it's...
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's a taste thing. These guys said that it was a German opera with French... Maybe those French like titles or subtitles or something. But one of the main characters was like a tree or something and singing in German, and they couldn't handle it. And at first I felt really like I was missing out because all my friends were going to the opera with good seats. And then I think they left halfway through it. But look, that maybe says something about my friends and not the opera. I don't know. Let's get on to the Père Lachaise, the famous cemetery. This is an interesting one. I would never have put this in people's first list, although some comments suggested that it should be a first visit. I don't think so at all. I think it's really time consuming. You got to get out to the 20th first, which is if you're staying central, that's a trip in itself. Then it's so enormous that you're going to be walking around. If you want to do it properly, you better be at least an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And you're going to get a little bit lost.
Definitely lost.
So that's 2 hours.
Yeah.
I was there kind of recently when we did the countdown thing, and I tried to take a shortcut through it with a pushchair and a baby. And the problem is the maps, because you look at the map as if it's a street. So you think it's it'll take 5 minutes to walk that, but they're just little alleyways.
Yeah.
So if you get wrong, you get so wrong. But you go there, you find Edith Piaf's grave, beautiful. Jim Morrison, Oscar Wilde, like all these famous people, and it's kind of like an outdoor it's like a sculpture garden. Some of them are just really beautiful. And I can't really stress how big it is. Like you go there, like you could almost do first, second, third, fourth visits to the Père Lachaise because there's so much going on. But just get in there and walk around, get a little bit lost, and try and come out on the other side. This next one, flea market. The way I've written it here is I'd say either go to the Saint-Ouen, the big famous one to the north of Paris, just like Père Lachaise. That's quite a day trip.
Yeah.
Or the Vanves. Have you been to Vanves?
I've not been to Vanves.
Add that to your list.
Yeah.
That is something. It was really cool. I only went fairly recently and also far away, but I mean, obviously it's far away because you've got to have streets full of antiques and so on. But also the other thing I noted is you can go to one of the brocantes, is it called, on the streets.
Yeah.
They have them all over the place, including in the Marais and the 11th area where you live. So if you can time it to do that. And the reason I think this is cool is because these flea markets are part of France, I think. Not just Paris. Like it's a lot of French people, walking up and down these aisles, picking out ways to decorate their home.
Yeah.
It feels like a very French thing. If you're on a budget, you might be disappointed.
Yeah. I went to the Marché Saint-Ouen. And there is a massive array of things that you can get, from, very expensive chandeliers, or there are, friperies, secondhand shops, clothing shops as well. So
that one's huge too. It's like a district.
Yeah.
And you've got to, if you're taking public transport to get there, you've got to push through, all the dudes selling, fake Air Jordan shoes out the front, which I thought was the market the first time I went there. I was like, this isn't so cool. And then you get into the really expensive bit with the chandeliers first. I think on my second visit there, I was like, well, I don't care about chandeliers. And then the third time, I approached from the other side because I had a scooter. I don't know how other people get there, but that was where all the cheaper stuff and the cool stuff was, and that was what I really liked. That could be a whole blog post, how to visit that market, because these people are on their third visit. They'll be fine. You'll be able to figure it out. Two more covered passages of the second. There's a bunch of them there. You could probably spend a morning walking between them all. The famous one, Galerie Vivienne. Do you know that one? The one with the
beautiful.
Just beautiful.
Yeah.
And then right next to it, the Grand Colbert, which is really close by and awesome. Also, I think if you just wander around enough in the second and into the ninth, you can just you'll find them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's nothing particular you got to see, but as far as I know, there used to be a lot more of these covered passages, like 150 of them. And the idea was it could let people get shopping without getting their feet dirty, because it was all mud outside and so on. And now there's only maybe a dozen or so that remain, and the ones that remain, I imagine, were the better ones. So if you find one, you're probably in for a treat. And I'll do some kind of blog post on that if I haven't already. Lastly, Parc Monceau.
Gorgeous.
This could be my favorite park.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, the other ones, the ones I've mentioned already, Tuileries and Luxembourg.
Yeah.
There's no secret there. I feel that this one still has an element of secret about it.
Yeah.
And so if people are going to go out here, it's in the 8th arrondissement, you've got to make an effort to get there. If you're wandering around Paris, you're very unlikely to stumble upon it. But if you make the effort, those beautiful gates, all the apartments around there look just
ridiculous.
I want to be inside one of those apartments. And then the park itself has got all kinds of treasures, and it's that one, if you're thinking at home that you might recognize it, it's the one that's got that
columns?
Yeah, the big columns with the lake. Just stunning. So go there, have a little walk around. That's not your favorite park though, is it?
No, I think my favorite is Place des Vosges.
Place des Vosges.
Yeah, I lived pretty much next door to it for 4 years. It's always a great picnic spot. It's very simple, but very beautiful.
It must have been devastating for you during the lockdown.
Kind of.
Because you couldn't get in there.
Couldn't get in. Just gradually saw it become more and more overgrown.
Yeah. Do you have pictures of that?
Yeah,
of the grass? How high did the grass get?
Very high.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, the size of a maybe 10-year-old. 10-year-old.
Like penguin or
Person.
human? Okay, yeah. That's something. Because, and it was the same around I ended up in the 7th around that point, and the Champ de Mars, the grass in some parts was about the height of a 7-year-old boy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and that's a nice tie back, the Place des Vosges, because you go through there. Do you know how old that place is?
400 years old.
There you go. So, okay, that's your third visit to Paris, everybody. Thanks to everyone on Patreon who voted that I do this episode. It's thanks to them that we're sitting here right now.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
guys.
Thank
86% of them. 14% didn't give a hoot. They're probably not listening. But for all you guys thinking to come to Paris, you might end up meeting Charlotte on a tour. Otherwise, hope to have you back on the podcast again soon. For people who are thinking, that Charlotte, she's fun, how can I follow her? Where would you direct people?
I don't know.
What's your address? No, Instagram perhaps?
Yeah, you can check me out on Instagram. We'll link it. I don't know.
We'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, maybe at a theatre in Paris. Acting?
Yeah. I've got 2 theatre ventures, Signet Theatre and Tapis Théâtre are 2 different things that I run here as well. So we can definitely check those out as well.
Good fun. I've been to shows of both over the years. So we'll link all that in the show notes below. And Charlotte, thanks so much for sharing your insight into this magnificent city.
You're very welcome.
So there you have it, Charlotte Pleasance. That was a New Zealand, a Kiwi accent, in case you're wondering. A lot of you guys have probably met her before doing the tours. If you haven't and you want to, get in contact. Just send an email to contact@theearfultower.com. Say that you're interested in tours. We're working on building something on the website to make it a little bit easier to find. But as for the list and all the pictures and all the links of everything you've just heard today, go to theearfultower.com. It will be at the very top of the website if you're quick. Otherwise, if you're a Patreon supporter, there's been some extra content in there for you this week, including voting on making this episode happen. Plus much more. The Facebook group has been really active lately, so jump in there if you're already a member and you haven't found that. That's where a lot of the action is. Patreon.com/theearfultower. That is how I get away without doing annoying ads in this show. If you like that, if you appreciate it, sign up. $10 a month unlocks pretty much everything, including soon Press Maxon and I, who I mentioned before, the musician at Press Maxon, PRESMAXSON. We've been working together, as usual, behind the scenes, making that CD from that countdown season. If you're a member, you'll be getting that CD in the post before too long, I hope. We can't wait to get it out to you. Now, next week, I won't be doing, I guarantee you I won't be doing this kind of list anymore. I'm going to take a break from that, but I will continue the lists on social media and on the website. But if all goes as planned, I'll be taking you outside of Paris next week on this podcast to Provence, talking about antiques. It's going to be a fun week. Hope to see you on Monday. Merci beaucoup and au revoir.